I don't think there are words to describe her. She was very special. My best friend, she kind of just took me under her wing and made me who I am today. She had a stroke. She passed away at the age of 81. I remember I just got on the school bus. It was the day of our science fair in 6th grade, and I took first place. So of course I pulled out my little track phone and had to call Grandma right away and tell her the big news. I remember she sounded really different, really kind of sleepy. At 12 years old, you don't really know much, but when you see your mom cry, you know something's not right. It all happened within a matter of maybe a day or two. She passed away. She was on hospice for a very short time, and Mom was up there with everybody. So my dad told us the news after school. And I also remember I lost my grandpa when I was 7. And getting off the school bus, my dad was at the end of the driveway. And then the day Grandma passed away, I knew she wasn't doing well, but I wasn't expecting that. And Dad came walking out to the end of the driveway and got my brother and I from the bus, and he didn't even have to say it. It was the same look. The funeral was really confusing for me, for a little 12-year-old. It was my first experience with death, really. I felt like my world was completely flipped upside down, and I had no idea what to do, and I know it's hard for parents to sometimes explain what's going on, and we just try to do our best. So I did what everyone else was doing. I saw people crying, so I thought it was okay to cry, and then afterwards there were family members shaking hands and hugging, and just kind of followed the crowd, really. I remember 2 funeral directors, and they were there the night of the visitation, and they kind of hung around and made sure everything went smoothly. And then they showed up again at the funeral the next day, and they closed the casket and took the casket out and led us to the cemetery, and they were there at the luncheon. And I remember asking myself in my head, what are these guys doing? I had no idea that it was a profession. I've driven past this funeral home a million times and never really knew what happened inside until I talked to Mike. And that was I remember it being the first of many light bulbs that went off. Grandma passing away was a huge hit on my family. Everybody was just so emotionally taken back by it. None of us were expecting it. I remember not being able to talk to my family about it because I could see how hurt they were. And I also remember just feeling like I didn't want to add more to their plate. And I think that's a lot for a 12-year-old to feel. My friends didn't understand either. I remember feeling a lot alone. If I had to choose one word, alone. And it's a feeling I'll never, ever forget. 3 or so months went by since Grandma passed away in late May. 3 months, it's not a lot of time, but it's enough time for some progress to be made with grieving, and I had not made much progress. So my mom called Mike, our local funeral director, and he recommended what was then Camp Amanda and sent me on my way, and I believe it was sometime in October. I remember the weather, it was Grandma's favorite season, and it was perfect timing. I was really excited about going to camp. I was also extremely nervous. I was not the 12-year-old who was able to jump into a group of people and become instant friends. I was kind of shy, and going there was a huge step. And I'd never been so nervous in my life, but I remember walking into this big, beautiful building full of people, and there was a table full of teddy bears. And right there, I'm like, this will be a good weekend. I also remember the love and anger wall, and that was probably my favorite part because I was so angry. I had probably 5 angry things to say about every one love thing. And being able to say everything I wanted to say and not have somebody say, well, that's not nice or that's not appropriate. It was huge. And that's something I'll never forget. I met a girl there who I still talk to today. And knowing at 12 years old that I'm not the only one going through this was also huge. My friends that I grew up with, they had never experienced a loss yet. So it was hard to cope. When I got home, I had so much to tell them. I remember it lasting days, the things I would remember and then start a conversation about. Being able to laugh with all these other people my age and also lighting candles and crying until I couldn't cry anymore. It was a great mix of emotions and an inviting place to let it all happen. So when I went home, I remember starting my own little journal, and it had a love section and an anger section, and I kept that going for quite a few years. And being able to share that with my family was amazing, and I also think that's one thing that brought my mom and I even closer. She lost her mom, I lost my grandma, and now my mom is my best friend. So being able to share that connection with somebody who's going through the same thing, it's so inspiring. And I was about 16 when I contacted Mike again and asked if I could come spend some time in his funeral home, a sophomore, junior in high school, trying to figure out what I want to do next. I knew I wanted to be here, whether it was to do with grief counseling or being a funeral director or anything related. Camp Amanda changed me, and it's something I want to carry on forever. I've worked with Mike for about 3 years, and I learned so much. It changed the way I think about camp. I went from being a confused and really sad 12-year-old losing my grandmother to going to camp and being able to share my experience with other kids my age. And now, 16 years old to 20 years old, working in this industry, it's a whole new picture to me. I'm able to embrace it, really. Everything I do with my grandma in mind, and it all started that one day that my mom called the funeral director. I started out opening the doors for people, and the faces that would come through our front door are people I grew up with, mentors of mine, school teachers, doctors. Being in a small town, it was just so inspiring. I would do everything from setting up flowers to cleaning the hearse, doing paperwork, behind the scenes stuff, and not a moment went by that it was boring or scary. It's a lot of the times it's really sad, but other times, looking back on what I went through, I remember Mike pulling me through it. And I always tell myself, if I can do that, if I can be Mike for one other family, at least one other family, I'll consider myself successful. I applied to the U's mortuary program earlier this year and got accepted in March, and I remember jumping up and down, and it seemed like I've been looking forward to this forever, and now that I'm right here and school starts in about a week, I have a hard time believing it. I really like working with the people, the families. As funeral directors or aspiring funeral directors, such as myself, we're most of the time the first face the families see. And being able to be that person and then make arrangements with them and carry through a funeral service and a burial and then continuing to stay there for months after, like Mike did for my family. That's what I'm most excited for. My dream is literally right in front of me. I still don't think my family quite believes me that I'm going to be a funeral director. I've known it for about 4 years now and have not strayed from that path. I get a lot of funny looks and inquisitive reactions from people when they say, "Oh, what are you going to school for?" I'm like, "Oh, mortuary science." And they're like, "What? Really?" Like, yeah, and I think it's great. Almost 10 years later, now this fall, I'm going to be a volunteer with the Family Hearts of Hope Camp. I am beyond excited to see how the dynamics have changed. When I was 12, I went by myself, and it was intimidating. And now the whole family is welcome, and I think that is great. I wish I could have brought my family to camp. I am so excited to be that older person. And to help the kids and laugh with the kids and cry with the kids and hug the kids because I was once that kid. The one thing I learned from camp was that grief never ends. It changes, and it's definitely a passage. It's not somewhere to stay. 8 years later, I'm still coping with losing my grandma, and now I'm looking at it in a whole different light. What I do at work has made the biggest difference in my life, my family's life, the lives of my friends, and if I can just take that and bring that impact into other grieving families, that'd be great.